In this edition of Business Focus, we shall be looking at the economic impact of the Israel-Hamas war, and why Israel and Hamas need a ceasefire. Once again, welcome to Biz TV 24, the online TV channel you can rely on. According to Wikipedia, the Israel-Hamas war has significant economic implications, not only for the involved parties but also for the global economy. With Israel embarked on a military campaign to eliminate Hamas from Gaza, it remains to be seen whether the conflict will escalate into a broader regional war. If it does, the global economic fallout could include a 1970s-style oil shock, crashing stock markets, and deep stagflationary recessions. Hamas's barbaric massacre of at least 1,400 Israelis on October 7, 2023 and Israel's subsequent military campaign in Gaza to eradicate the group, has introduced four geopolitical scenarios bearing on the global economy and markets. As is often the case with such shocks, optimism may prove misguided. In the first scenario, the war remains mostly confined to Gaza, with no regional escalation beyond the small-scale skirmishes with Iranian proxies in countries neighboring Israel. Indeed, most players now prefer to avoid a regional escalation. The Israel Defense Forces Gaza campaign significantly erodes Hamas, leaving a high civilian casualty toll, and the unstable geopolitical status quo survives. Having lost all support, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu leaves office, but Israeli public sentiment remains hardened against accepting a two-state solution. Accordingly, the Palestinian issue festers, normalization of diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia is frozen, Iran remains a destabilizing force in the region, and the United States continues to worry about the next flare-up. The economic and market implications of this scenario are mild. The current modest rise in oil prices would recede, because there will have been no shock to regional production and exports from the Gulf. Though the U.S. could try to interdict Iranian oil exports to punish it for its destabilizing role in the region, it is unlikely to pursue such an escalatory measure. Iran's economy would continue to stagnate under existing sanctions, deepening its dependence on close ties with China and Russia. Gaza's infrastructure and economy. The war has caused devastating damage to Gaza's infrastructure and economy. The war has resulted in upheaval and destruction on a scale never before seen in the enclave. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, reported that over 41,000 homes were destroyed and over 222,000 were damaged. The war also badly affected hospitals, schools, water and sanitation systems, and food security. By the end of December 2023, the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics estimated that the Palestinian economy had lost a total of $1.5 billion USD since the start of the conflict. Employment in Gaza. The war caused significant job losses in Gaza. As at when the war reached its one-month mark, 61% of employment in Gaza, equivalent to 182,000 jobs, was estimated to have been lost. See what the International Labour Organization, ILO, as of November 2023 said in the first bulletin it issued on the impact of the current Israel-Hamas conflict on the labour market and livelihoods in the occupied Palestinian territory. At least 61% of employment, equivalent to 182,000 jobs, has been lost in the Gaza Strip since the start of the current Israel-Hamas war, a new ILO report estimates. The conflict in Gaza is also having a spillover effect in the West Bank, where an estimated 24% of employment, equivalent to 208,000 jobs, has been lost over the same period. The total estimated 390,000 job losses in the two areas that comprise the occupied Palestinian territory translate into daily labor income losses of $16 million. These figures are projected to increase if military operations in Gaza intensify and the humanitarian crisis in the enclave continues to unfold. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza has severe implications on the labor market, employment prospects and livelihoods in the enclave and across the entire occupied Palestinian territory, the bulletin reports. Our initial assessment of the repercussions of the tragic current crisis on the Palestinian labor market have yielded extremely worrying results, which will only worsen if the conflict continues, said ILO Regional Director for Arab States Ruba Jaradat. The ongoing hostilities not only represent an enormous humanitarian crisis in terms of loss of lives and basic human needs, they also represent a social and economic crisis which has caused vast damage to jobs and businesses, with reverberations that will be felt for many years to come, Jaradat added. Impact on Israel. The war is costing the Israeli economy $600 million a week due to work absences, according to the Bank of Israel. This is equivalent to about 6% of the weekly GDP. The bank also stated that the estimate does not reflect total damage and did not include damages caused by the absence of Palestinian and foreign workers. On the other hand, Israel's Treasury Minister said the daily direct cost of the Gaza war to her country is about $246 million. Has been estimated that if the war went on for 8 to 12 months, the cost of the war to the Israeli economy would be more than $50 billion, or close to 10% of GDP, according to Calculist, citing early Ministry of Finance figures. The estimates assume the conflict is limited to Gaza, without further escalation with other parties, and relies on the 350,000 drafted reservists returning to work soon. The economic toll of this violence may cost Israel an estimated $400 billion in lost economic activity over the next decade, threatens Israel's economic future. For Israel, 90% of the economic shock will come from indirect effects, reduced investment, slowing productivity growth and labor market disruption. Due to Israel suspending Palestinian work permits, it recruited workers from India and Sri Lanka to fill the gaps. Israeli claims of Chinese sanctions. Israel's high-tech factories reported on December 25 that they had been having trouble with electronic imports from China due to recent bureaucratic obstacles, leading to higher import costs and delayed delivery times. Israeli officials also reported that China had refused to send workers to their country during the war against the backdrop of a worker shortage in Israel's construction and farming sectors. China's actions were described as a de facto sanction. Reason why the both parties, Israel and Hamas, need a ceasefire is mutually beneficial. Israel needs the hostages to be released, while Hamas is struggling to survive as the Israeli bombardment continues. Palestinian civilians are dying in their numbers. Efforts to reach a new ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appear to be gaining steam. Egyptian and U.S. officials confirmed this week that they are actively pursuing ways to halt a war that has raged for over 110 days. An Egyptian official said that Israel has presented a proposal for a pause in fighting, while the White House said it dispatched a senior envoy to the region for consultations with Egypt and Qatar. Any deal would have to include a pause in fighting, an exchange of hostages held by Hamas for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, and large quantities of desperately needed humanitarian assistance for the war-battered Gaza Strip. But finding a formula acceptable to both sides has been elusive. The gaps between Israel and Hamas remain wide, and the chances of an agreement anytime soon still appear slim.
Thank you for watching. Share your views on what you think on the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification bell to get our latest videos.
Biz TV 24. Business from a different